Picture this. You walk into a room and immediately feel like someone just dumped a bucket of everyone else's emotions over your head. Your coworker's stress from their morning commute somehow becomes your stress. The barista's bad mood mysteriously attaches itself to you like emotional Velcro. And don't even get me started on what happens when you accidentally make eye contact with that person crying at the coffee shop. Suddenly, you're questioning your own life choices while trying not to ugly cry into your latte. Sound familiar? Well, congratulations. You might be what psychologists call an empath. Not the mystical, crystal-wearing, aura-reading kind, though no judgment if that's your thing, but the scientifically backed, your brain is wired differently kind. And before you start wondering if this makes you some sort of emotional superhero, let me burst that bubble right now. Being an empath is less like having superpowers and more like having emotional allergies. Except instead of sneezing, you absorb everyone's feelings until you can't tell which emotions are actually yours. Now, I need to throw in a quick reality check here because we're diving into some heavy psychological territory. This video is purely for information and entertainment purposes. If you're dealing with serious mental health issues, please seek professional help. A YouTube video, no matter how devastatingly witty, is not a substitute for actual therapy. Trust me, I've tried explaining my problems to my laptop screen. It's surprisingly unhelpful. So let's talk about the first sign you might be more empathic than you think. You have what I like to call supernatural customer service skills. Not because you can predict the future, but because you can walk into any social situation and immediately read the room like it's a children's picture book. You know exactly who had a fight with their partner this morning, who's stressed about money, and who's secretly judging everyone's outfit choices. It's like having emotional X-ray vision, except instead of seeing through clothes, you see through people's social masks. This isn't just good intuition. This is your brain doing Olympic-level gymnastics to process micro-expressions, body language, and vocal tones that most people completely miss. While everyone else is having surface-level conversations about the weather, you're picking up on the fact that when Susan said she was fine, she was actually broadcasting her existential crisis at full volume. The kicker? You didn't even try to notice this stuff. Your brain just does it automatically, like breathing, except way more emotionally exhausting. The second sign is what I call the human emotional sponge syndrome. Remember those cleaning sponges that absorb 10 times their weight in liquid? That's you, but with feelings. You walk into a happy place, you become inexplicably cheerful. You enter a tense meeting, and suddenly your shoulders are somewhere near your ears and you're wondering why you feel like you need to apologize for existing. It's like your emotional thermostat is broken, and instead of regulating your own temperature, it just matches whatever's in the environment. This gets particularly fun at family gatherings. You know the drill? Uncle Bob's political rants start affecting your blood pressure. Aunt Martha's passive-aggressive comments about your life choices somehow make you question everything, and by the end of the evening, you feel like you've been through an emotional washing machine on the spin cycle. Meanwhile, everyone else seems mysteriously unaffected, leaving you wondering if you're just dramatically overreacting to normal human interaction. The third sign is that you've accidentally become everyone's unpaid therapist. And I don't mean you give good advice, though you probably do. I mean people literally cannot help themselves from trauma dumping on you like you're wearing an invisible sign that says, "Tell me your deepest fears while we wait for the elevator." You could be standing in line at the grocery store minding your own business, and somehow the person behind you ends up explaining their complicated relationship with their mother while you're just trying to buy milk and existential dread. This happens because empaths give off this weird energy that screams, "I will actually listen to you and care about your problems." Most people are so starved for genuine attention that when they encounter someone who actually seems interested in their well-being, they immediately start unloading decades of emotional baggage. It's like being a magnet, but instead of attracting metal, you attract people's deepest insecurities and life crises. Here's where things get really interesting. If you're still watching this video instead of clicking away to watch cat videos, there's a good chance you recognize yourself in these descriptions. Hit that subscribe button, because clearly, you're the type of person who enjoys having your psychological patterns called out by a stranger on the internet. Plus, we've got more content coming that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. The fourth sign is what I like to call emotional boundary issues. but not in the way you might think. We're not talking about letting people walk all over you, though that might happen too. We're talking about the fact that you literally cannot figure out where your emotions end and other people's emotions begin. It's like trying to separate different colored Play-Doh after a toddler has mashed them all together. Theoretically possible, but practically a nightmare. You'll be having a perfectly normal day feeling reasonably content with your life choices, and then you spend 10 minutes talking to your stressed-out friend. Suddenly, you're spiraling about deadlines you don't even have and worrying about problems that aren't yours. Your friend walks away feeling better after venting, and you're left sitting there wondering why you now feel like your life is falling apart. It's emotional vampirism, except the vampire doesn't even realize they're doing it, and you don't realize you're being drained until you're already running on empty. This gets especially complicated in romantic relationships. You start dating someone, and within weeks, their anxiety becomes your anxiety, their excitement becomes your excitement, and their weird hang-ups about their ex become your weird hang-ups about their ex. Before you know it, you're not sure if you actually like hiking or if you just absorbed your partner's enthusiasm for spending hours walking uphill while pretending to enjoy nature. It's like emotional identity theft, but everyone's doing it to each other without realizing it. The fifth and most telling sign is that you need to disappear from human civilization on a regular basis, not because you hate people, but because you need to figure out which feelings actually belong to you. You know that feeling when you've been around people all day, and you finally get home and immediately want to hide in your room with the lights off and no stimulation whatsoever? That's not antisocial behavior. That's emotional detox. Think of it like this. Imagine if every conversation you had was like trying to have a phone call while standing next to a construction site. Except the construction site is everyone else's emotions, and your brain is desperately trying to process all that noise while still maintaining a coherent sense of self. After a while, you just need to go somewhere quiet, so your brain can stop working overtime and you can remember what your own thoughts sound like. This is why empaths often get labeled as flaky or antisocial. People don't understand that when you say you need alone time, you're not being dramatic. You're literally trying to separate your emotional data from everyone else's emotional data so you can function like a normal human being. It's like defragmenting a computer, except the computer is your brain, and the files are everyone's feelings about their childhood trauma. The really wild part about being empathic is that it comes with this weird side effect where you start caring about everything, even when you really don't want to. You'll be scrolling through social media, just trying to look at memes and avoid responsibilities, and somehow you end up genuinely worried about a stranger's relationship problems or feeling personally invested in whether someone's sourdough starter survives. It's like having no emotional filter whatsoever. Everything gets through and everything matters, even when logic tells you it shouldn't. This extends to global issues too. You can't just casually read the news like a normal person. Instead, you end up absorbing humanity's collective anxiety about climate change, political chaos, and economic uncertainty until you're lying awake at night worrying about problems you have absolutely no power to solve. Meanwhile, your non-empathic friends seem mysteriously capable of acknowledging that bad things exist without letting it ruin their entire week. But here's the thing. Nobody tells you about being empathic. It's not actually about being a good person. Society loves to paint empaths as these noble, caring individuals who make the world a better place through their sensitivity and compassion. That's partially true, but it's also kind of missing the point. Being empathic isn't a choice you make to be altruistic. It's just how your brain processes information. You're not necessarily more moral than anyone else. You just have different emotional equipment. It's like having really sensitive hearing. You don't choose to hear every conversation in the restaurant. Your ears just pick up more sound than other people's ears do. The difference is that with emotional sensitivity, instead of hearing conversations you don't want to hear, you're feeling emotions you don't want to feel. And unlike physical sensitivity, which people generally understand and accommodate, emotional sensitivity often gets dismissed as being dramatic or attention-seeking. The evolutionary psychology behind empathy is actually fascinating. Some researchers suggest that empaths served important social functions in early human communities. They were the ones who could detect threats, mediate conflicts, and maintain group cohesion. Basically, they were the emotional early warning system for the tribe. Which makes sense, because even today, Empaths are often the first to notice when something's off in a group dynamic, even when they can't articulate exactly what it is. Of course, what worked for small tribal communities doesn't necessarily work so well in modern society, where you might encounter hundreds of strangers in a single day, each carrying their own emotional baggage. It's like having a smoke detector that was designed for a small cabin, but gets installed in a busy restaurant. It's going to go off constantly, even when there's no actual fire. This brings us to the most important thing to understand about being empathic. It's not your job to fix everyone's emotional problems just because you can sense them. This is where a lot of empaths get into trouble. They feel everyone's pain so clearly that they start thinking they're responsible for alleviating it. But emotional awareness doesn't equal emotional responsibility. You can acknowledge that your coworker is stressed without taking on their stress as your own personal mission. Learning to manage empathic tendencies is basically like learning to drive a car with extremely sensitive brakes. You have to develop a much more delicate touch than other people need, and you have to accept that you'll always need to be more careful about your emotional environment than people who aren't wired this way. It's not fair, and it's not always convenient, but it's reality. The good news is that once you understand how your emotional system works, you can actually use it as a superpower, just not the kind you see in movies. Instead of reading minds or predicting the future, you get to be the person who notices when someone needs help before they ask for it, who can diffuse tense situations before they explode, and who somehow always knows exactly what to say to make people feel understood. These might not be flashy abilities, but they're incredibly valuable in a world where most people feel invisible and misunderstood. So if you recognize yourself in these signs, welcome to the club. Nobody asked to join, but everyone secretly grateful exists. Your brain might process emotions differently than other people's brains. But that doesn't make you broken or overly sensitive. It just makes you human, with all the messy complexity that entails. And while you're figuring out how to navigate the world with your emotional antenna perpetually extended, remember that even the most empathic person needs to put their own oxygen mask on first before helping others with theirs. Now, speaking of emotional oxygen masks, tomorrow you're going to interact with dozens of people, each carrying their own invisible burdens. And your brain is going to try to process all of it whether you want it to or not. But at least now you know why your emotional thermostat seems broken, why strangers keep telling you their life stories, and why you need to hide in your room after social events just to remember who you actually are underneath everyone else's feelings.